It's true that reality is often scarier than fiction, but what happens when the line between what's real and what's fake becomes so blurred that people start to confuse the two? Though some HSEs are harmless fun, others have sparked panic fear and even real-world consequences today. We'll be looking into some of the wildest and most unsettling deceptions to ever grace or perhaps disgrace the internet. We'll start with arguably the most obscure entry in this video, as I've only seen it covered by a couple of my fellow YouTubers, namely Cocky and Coop. So back in January of this year, a user named Microwaved Meatballs made a post on the internet mystery Sayet that caught my attention. About 20 years ago, a friend of mine, he was quite odd, told me about eos.com. It was in Spanish and claimed to be selling cadaver parts worldwide. I didn't want anything to do with the site, so I didn't really engage much with my friend while he was showing off his find, but it always stuck in the back of my mind looking at it so much later. I see links to blogs that discuss head transplants, artificial life, and other bizarre philosophical thinking. Has anyone ever heard of this? The site has since been deleted, but aside from a few lost images, all of its content can still be accessed through the Wayback Machine. The first mention of Eros or bodies, as it translates to in English, seems to date back to October 2005 with its company statement. Reading Eros has proudly served the South American markets since its foundation. In 1994, through Eros, you can order human bodies and limbs from anywhere. The various pages can be browsed in English, Portuguese, or in its default language setting, Spanish. And looking at the homepage, we can see a list of all of the products available for purchase on this mob marketplace, from individual body parts to complete corpses. And though the icons used to depict each item appear cartoonish, if you click on them, you'll be linked to images of seemingly real limbs, digits, and torsos. These photos have thankfully been cropped to hide any cut marks. Most appear to have been taken from above, as if the body was stretched out on an autopsy table, though given that each item has been isolated from its background, it's hard to say that with certain. Alongside each image are product details, including the price per item, country of origin, and vintage, which presumably refers to the birth year of the decedentor, the year in which their body was frozen. There are also brief descriptions of each item. For example, on this listing, for female breasts, we're told that they're sold separately and may contain dye biopsies or tumors. Scrolling down further, you can read comments left by past customers reviewing the male eyes that they had purchased. One user wrote, "These were beautiful, fresh, and not cloudy. Unlike most of the competitors, other eyes looked like they were either scraped out with a fork or smashed in transit." Review in the female. 4/4, another said, "I acquire Cavas Ferrar Medical School and Surgical Departments in Guadalajara. Whether fresh, frozen, or preserved, Eros have always provided excellent quality products and services, especially for the students each. Kadaba has a fascinating story to be figured out, detective style, through dissection. The concept of a site selling dead humans on the surface web isn't actually so out there. Though most countries consider human remains to be controlled material in the U.S. body, brokerage is legal in almost every state, provided the specimens are donated willingly and aren't being sold for organ harvesting. Unfortunately, many people who agree to leave theirs to science end up in the hands of brokers who sell them for profit. And while some do get sent to med schools, Others are thored with garden hoses and sold to people with questionable intentions. As Boston College law professor Ray Madd told Russ, "We know very little about who's acquiring these boods and what they're doing with them." Indeed, by Equus' his own admission, they don't just sell these body parts to medical schools for training purposes, but to scientists, collaborators, and human body enthusiasts. So in essence, anyone delving further into the site, you'll find the FAQ section where the company explained their shipping and privacy policies, as well as covering some of the legalities in purchasing body parts, though crucially they don't mention how they sourced their inventory. Given that certain items are listed as coming from the 1970s, Chile, some have questioned whether they could have come from victims of the PIN regime, under whom a lot of Chileans disappeared. So Equo's an elaborate hoax or a shady relic of the old internet. On the one hand, the prices for all of these body parts are unrealistically high. Though you can't put a price on a human life, a lifeless human goes for between $3,000 and $10,000 on the American market. However, Munquos, they were apparently being sold for $200,000. That's an immediate reped black. On the other hand, there are ads at the top of the homepage which link a third-party websites dealing with artificial life. These seem to be completely independent from Eros and genuinely authentic. This one, for instance, called calres.org, was established way back in 1998 and is still going strong today. This seems like a rabbit hole in and of itself, one dealing with the alien thought virus of complex system sciences. What does that have to do with Equos? It's not entirely clear, as they don't seem to be any parallels between the two sites, other than the fact that own links to the other, of course. But there may be something in here that I'm missing. As you can see, Calresco is gargantuan. They're also vaguely cultish and labeled "Do Not Secure," so I don't recommend going there. Yourself, I may look into this site in a future upload. But for now, let's head back to Equibos. On the right-hand side of the site, you'll notice some endorsements left by previous customers, and one in particular stands out, made by a CT surgeon named Joel. Impeccable service with quick and efficient shipping and no leakage. Well done, use below. Joel's name is a link to C1D1T1, a strange site run by Joel and his friends Kenny and Dan, one which revolves around transhumanism. Taking care of a body is expensive, inconvenient, and often embarrassing for the patient bodies. Decay and a mind attached to a decaying body decays faster. Many attempts have been made by brilliant scientists and quacks alike to provide relief for those patients who want to live independently of their non-functioning bodies. Our research me to making physically compact long-term cardiopulmonary bypass and continuous dialysis a reality may provide a viable solution where other techniques have failed. We're chronicling our lives and thoughts as we pursue our scientific goals, using our bold expertise in mechanical engineering, microvascular surgery, cardiovascular physiology, and neuroscience. The website functions as a digital diary of sorts, documenting Joel, Kenny, and Dan's progress with what they call Project Headbody, a series of underground experiments with the ultimate goal being to remove a living human's head while keeping their brain fully functional. Though scientists have experimented with head transplants on animals with very limited success in the past, I'm not aware of any ever attempting to surgically create self-sufficient heads, though in their first post, Joel and his team claim to have already had decent results practicing on rents In an update made on September 30th, 2005, Joel explained that he had purchased a complete human specimen from eos.com, hence his positive endorsement. And on October 4th uploaded a video introducing everyone to Bernie, who he described as a 240B hairy dead man in the footage. Bernie is plunked unceremoniously on a sofa between Joel and Kenny as they discuss cryogenics and the movie weekend of Barris mechanical elastic properties. Yeah, you can imagine a shard 6, like blades cutting into the flash and into the tissues. Totally, yeah, texture. You imagine a steak. You freeze a steak. Thought freeze it. Thought freeze it. Thought eventually it's going to turn into munch. It's just all those Charvius. You cut the tissues. The juice is going to flow out. And it's just going to be like Grell. Who wants that in a follow-up video? Joel explains his plan to remove Bernie's head in preparation for experimenting on a live monkey. While doing so, his co-workers play a practical joke on him. Not sure it's going to work could get a little ugly, especially if his skin starts to slough off. Oh, Jesus. The last major character to cover in this bizarre series of experiments is H, the soon-to-be test subject in a post titled I Need a Monkey. Joel wrote about searching for a primate and linked to a website called Benny a Grain, one which allegedly sold exotic live animals for rearing, loving, orating. He claims to have purchased Teddy the chimp from that site. Unfortunately for the Head Body Project, one of the group, Dan, became very attached to H and began to question the ethics of their research. Being a medical student and dissecting living creatures doesn't seem like the right thing to do. I think that we should cut up things that just aren't. Live finally on October 11th, Dan stole Hetty and disappeared. A week later, Joel and Kenny received an envelope. Inside was a film cartridge sent by Dan, confirming that he and Hetty were still alive. So a ridiculous chain of events, lashings of early 2000s humor, a body that seemingly breathes, and a chimp giving the most convincing performance. This whole thing screams. Oh, and that website where Joel supposedly purchased Teddy from Bagra. There's a commercial featured on that site, and I'll let it speak for itself. Hey, I am Ben. You need a cobra stare. Even if I won, then be Ben. You will receive the animal in 30 days, or less. Granted, truly, Oscar-worthy. Now, you're probably wondering if this was all an elaborate hoax, one which involved creating multiple websites, making regular updates, and hiring a primate. What were the creators hoping to achieve? Well, the final update to appear on C1D, 1T1 made on October 20th, 2005 gave the game away in it. Joel Snarkle remarked that MTV had stolen their idea and linked TOA website for Head and Body, a miniseries created in partnership with Motorola, consisting of 8 mots designed to be watched on your mobile phone. If you can imagine something so futuristic after the success of the Blair Witch Project in the late 90s, many companies tried to emulate their guerrilla marketing strategy, making use of this new internet thing to creatively promote their products. Following suit, MTV employed Night Agency to generate buzz for their new miniseries, when they in turn came up with the dark triad of EAD, BOSC1, D1, T1, and Bagra. So now I can say with 100% confidence that I haven't shown you anything that breezes YouTube's guidelines, and that this was all just another unsuccessful attempt at early viral marketing, a failed MTV ARG. Yeah, unfortunately for everyone involved, the show went largely unnoticed. Not a single comment was ever made under any of the vlog entries, and the entire project fell into obscurity between 2006 and 2007. All three of the hoax websites were taken down, though, in the case of Ebos. Its domain lived on when examining the site's data archive. Some of the links from 2006 have suspicious titles, so I'm assuming after Rebus was abandoned by MTV, a different read of body enthusiasts repurposed the domain. Those archived links don't work anymore, by the way. Don't ask me how I know music. That one of the things I appreciate most about my work is flexibility, being able. Stamps to set my own schedule, work when I'm most productive, and not waste time on tedious tasks. That's priceless. The less time I spend on things like running errands or waiting in line, the more time I can focus on what really matters. And that's why I use the sponsor of today's video, Stamps.com. Their app gives me complete control over my mailing and shipping, letting me handle it all on my own time, wherever I am. Whether you're running a business, selling online, or just need to send out important documents, Stamps.com has you covered. It's not just for small business mailings. It's an all-in-one shipping solution that works for everyone, giving you access to all the USBs and UPS services you need right from your phone or computer. No trips to the post office required. Stamps.com rate advised takes the guesswork out of postage costs, helping you find the cheapest and fastest shipping options. We're talking up to 88% off USPS and UPS rates, plus they even send you a free scale, so you always know exactly what you're paying for. Take back your time and get the flexibility you deserve with Stamps.com. Sign up at Stamps.com, LA's Masquerade, for a 4-wetter reel plus free postage and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. That's Stamps.com. Lay's Masquerade, or click my link in description. The weird side of YouTube, home to some of the strangest videos ever uploaded to the internet in her twisted Hall of Fame. Countless uncanny clips, ones that have stuck in our minds, played on fears we didn't even know we had, and sparked dark theories, blank room soup, that persist to this day. Though few have ever reached the same level of infamy as blank room soup.avi first uploaded to the Renaissance Men channel in 2005 under the title Freaky Soup. Guy Blank Room Soup went largely unnoticed, that is, until 2014 when it was re-uploaded by maintenance tunnels. With the name we all know today for those who've been living in their own blank room for the past decade, the video features a man sitting at a table slurping from a bowl of soup with an oversized spoon as he eats two costume figures with blank expressions and large heads silently approach him and pat his back, seemingly offering him comfort. Suddenly, the man begins sobbing laughter. The video then abruptly ends, clocking in at just 1 minute and 6 seconds. The upload more closely resembles an extract from a snuff than anything else. Something about the video just felt wrong. The man's distress seemed too real, the silent figures too unsettling, the room too blank, the broth too unseasoned. And it didn't take long for viewers to start speculating about its origin. The most popular theory being that the video was sourced from a so-called red room sites on the dark web, where paying customers can watch people be tortured and killed, typically in real time. Those who belied that theory speculated that the man was being forced to eat human remains, possibly those of his wife, and children, and that this was set to be his last meal before meeting his own demise. Others suggested that the man was being force-fed until his stomach ruptured. Others still speculated that this was a recording from some underground psychological experiment. Discussion groups and forums dedicated to explaining the video proliferated, and more people became interested in uncovering the meaning behind the clip. The fate of the soup painter and the identities of his costume tormentors. As for the costumes themselves, many websites claimed, and indeed continue to claim, that nobody knows who these characters are, meant or symbol. But that simply isn't true. They're actually Ray character, created by Raymond Percy, an animator artist, an occasional voice actor who played Flash the Sloth in Zootopia. The humanoid Rays were originally based on doodles Percy created, and he often used these suits and life-stage performances to explore themes of alienation, inhibition, and the deep-seated need to entertain. In fact, they sometimes served as the visualization of Raymond Percy's innermost thoughts and feelings, hence why he called them Ray in a 2015 email exchange with her bot. Percy explained that after a performance in Hollywood, 2 of his Ray costumes mysteriously went missing. Percy believed that someone from his audience had waited until after the show to steal them. Then weeks later, he claims to have received a disturbing email with a video attachment, that being blank room soup. Percy was of course disturbed by what he saw. Someone somewhere had taken his characters and used them for something deeply unsettling, and thus he decided to upload the video to his YouTube account, Renaissance Man, giving it the title Freaky Soup Guy, in the hopes that his community might be able to figure out what was going on. As blank room soup gave more attention, more videos began appearing. A second video titled Soup Torture surfaced back into 2007. The format was similar. The same man eating soup in the same blank room, with the same silent Ray figure standing ominously in the background. But this time something different happened. I'm sure most of you agree there's something off about this second video, but simply it feels far less authentic than the original. Why would the costume figure ran at him like that? What was the point of such a dramatic movement? And why did it look like he wasn't going to follow through with a strike? Did he just stop when the footage cut if? So why did the man begin to let out a scream? Years later, in 2022 and 2023 respectively, Blank Room Soup Parts 3 and 4 surfaced. Let's take a quick look at them. So Part 4 is just your generic found footage, nothing fancy to go over there. But Part 3 is where this series truly jumped the shark. It shows one of the Ryries man handling a new victim. Thing is, the loosely tied up figure in this clip is quite obviously Gil Chiron, a member of the band Stolen Babies. The same band that Raymond Percy's sister Dominique Percy is the lead vocalist of, the same band that have featured Ray in their music videos. Yeah, the odds of Raymond Percy not being involved in the creation of Parts 3 and 4 sit somewhere around the 0% mark. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that he was behind the first 2 videos. After all, he may have just been contributing to the mystery using his own friends and extra costumes. What is clear is that Parts 3 and 4 were staged. So you have to ask yourself, how likely is it that the original was fake too? In my opinion, the answer is more nuanced than you might assume. I think it is obvious that Percy made up the story he shared with Arbot about the stolen Ray suits, and that it did indeed create the original Blank Room Soup video himself. However, I honestly don't think. His initial intention was to stage a Red Room-styled mystery. but rather to express his inner turmoil through art. In his own words, Percy often used the wreaths to visualize and have fun with his feelings of loneliness and isolation. With that in mind, I believe Blank Room Soup shouldn't be interpreted literally but metaphorically, a sad anonymized man eating alone in a blank fluorescently lit windowless room. That's surely the best visual expression of loneliness and isolation one can imagine. Right? The rares aren't supposed to be the man's captors mocking him, but rather the physical representation of his emotions. You'll notice that his tears suddenly begin once they touch him, and if you listen closely to the video, you start to get the sense that the man isn't just crying like one might from fear, but rather laughing like one might during an emotional release. I strongly suspect that Percy, known for his dark and playful creative style, uploaded Blank Room Soup under the much less ominous title Freaky Soup Guy back in 2005, intending for it to be interpreted artistically. However, when his viewers commented that the video was actually creepy, he leaned into the eeriness and created a second piece in 2007 that was far more straightforward and frankly much less convincing. Though some claim that's impossible because two clips were filmed at the same time, you can actually tell that some time has passed between them. For instance, notice how the plug sockets in the back change slightly between the two clips and how the man's hair is styled slightly differently. In 2014, someone then re-uploaded the original to the Maintenance Tunnels channel, where again it was taken at face value by most viewers. The video gained widespread attention. And when Sloths finally traced the Ray mascots back to Percy, he saw an opportunity to indulge in his dark and playful side once again and fabricated the stolen suits narrative to build an eerie mythology around his old video, fueling speculation and cementing its status as an internet mystery. Percy then created parts 3 and 4 perhaps to bring attention to his little sister's band, perhaps just to have some fun. So although I don't think the original video began its life as a hoax in a strange way, it morphed into one over time. You may not agree with my interpretation of the Blank Room Soup video, and that's no problem. But given that it was originally uploaded to Raymond Percy's personal YouTube channel using his characters and was followed by a video featuring his friend, I'm confident saying that the original wasn't sourced from the dark web and was in fact created by the artist himself. And if you don't agree with that, then I urge you to go back to blankroomsoup.avi and take a closer look at the man with anonymized eyes, and while you're there, simply compare him to a photo of Raymond. On April 3, 2017, a post appeared on 4chan Politically Incorrect board, simply titled, "How Deep Are You Into Conspiracies?" Attached was a Galaxy Brain tier list, with each section containing entries related to government cover-ups, forbidden knowledge, and secret organizations. But buried beneath the more absurd topics about time-traveling assassins and North Korean utopias was an inclusion that caught everyone's attention. The 2006 volleyball incident, one commenter responded, "I've only met one person IRL and 2 people online who know about that." And when others began to ask about what the incident was, Ope elaborated, "Here's what I know. Firsthand, there was a small explosion or mass shooting at a volleyball game. Somewhere in the DTAs or Nebraska, it was never specified. I know that sounds like BS, but that's what's weird about it. I was on a trip to Rushmore back then. A newspaper and a Nebraska gas station reported a shooting at a small town 10 miles away, when I end up in South Dakota, Riyadh, about it again around Kadoka. Says there was a shooting in Gettysburg. Same state. By the time I leave, I hear little talk about it only once during motel breakfast. When I get home, I asked my friend what he thought about the whole thing, and he remembers it taking place in North Dakota. It stayed in the back of my mind for a long time until I slowly forgot. One day I remembered and joked about it during a gaming session, and these two guys asked to talk more about it. They had the same experience too. And I remember on the X board someone talking about something similar to the volleyball incident, so I just stuck it in this image, hoping someone would remember. 17 to 24 people died at once, and no one talks about it. After that, post discussions about the 2006 volleyball incident spread to the Paranormal Board Reddit and other various forums. People began searching old news archives and coming through local papers looking for information about the incident. But the deeper they dived, the less they found. Not a single record article or witness statement. The event simply didn't exist. And yet more and more people were stepping forward, claiming to remember reading or hearing about it. Back in 2006, some believed this was a new example of the Mandela effect, a collective false memory, perhaps one they had confused with the Pulla Canyon High School crisis. But others had a far darker theory. What if the 2006 volleyball incident had happened, but was intentionally erased from history, a government operation in a small town, covered up so thoroughly that no traces remained, as one discussion on the export dree. How does one live after taking the red pill on the 2006 volleyball incident? Fill me in. Anons, what happened? Supposedly a gunman shot and killed 14 people during a 2006 volleyball high school game in South Dakota or Nebraska. Everything was covered up, and it was never reported in the press, and it's been forgotten about by everyone. If you were there and say you remember seeing 14 people die that night, you're labeled crazy, etc. Personally, if this did happen, I wonder if they had someone in mind that they wanted to kill, and the others were just unfortunate bystanders. But we'll never know. Crowd subversion and collective removed memory. It was the sketch of a greater plan yet to come. For years, discussion about the 2006 volleyball incident was confined to small online communities. That is until photographic evidence surfaced in a June 2012 video. Muta Harwas exploring a thread on the image board Trash Chan when he stumbled upon a set of disturbing images, stills taken from a so-called home video recording of the volleyball incident. The first still showed the soon-to-be victims gathered around a volleyball net in a school gymnasium below. That were images of blood on the core board. Body bags haphazardly scattered around several players spread out on the ground, and a blurred frame with the words CSI, not for Elise, plastered at the bottom. At first glance, they were chilling, but with a little analysis, these images can easily be debunked. This first image gives us a decent look at the gymnasium, where the incident supposedly occurred, recognizing the wall pattern, flag placement, and distinctive U on the court. A few users were quick to identify it as the UTA High School gymnasium, and crucially, UDA High School has never been the setting of a massacre. This is the only one of the 6 images that I'm convinced is even real. Not only do the other 5 photos, the timestamp in the bottom left, suggesting they weren't even captured by the same camera, but upon closer inspection, they appear to be AI-generated, despite supposedly being from the same recording. There's zero consistency between them. They all have remarkably different saturation levels, and the core itself has a different texture in each frame. But let's go through them all one by one, in detail, starting with this image. The shapes lying on the ground barely resemble human beings at all, and the color of their outfits don't match those in the time-stamped image. I'm assuming this is meant to be one of the players' heads, though. I'm not sure what's going on with her distorted body. Or this bizarrely long strand of hair, a similar black line can be seen. In this next image running along the same angle, it's presumably meant to be a quote marking, but it leads nowhere. This was likely some sort of error where the AI didn't know how to generate the markings, so it reacted to the prompt in the same way in both images. Then there's this other marking which is strangely in focus compared to the rest of the picture. And I mean, come on. What's even going on with the white markings in this photo? They are extremely wonky, overly distinct, and seem to somehow go over the blood stains on the ground. Speaking of which, the blood stain patterns themselves appear extremely fake in this one. It even has that raspberry jam appearance that AI tools love to use, and while we're here, take a look at those legs. Not only is the perspective all wrong, but they all appear to be floating due to a lack of any shadows. Whoever generated this image also appears to have blacked out this bottom section, presumably because it looked too fake to include. Thus, they covered it with a CSI stamp to create the illusion they were all captured on an old camcorder. The creator then slapped an unconvincing distortion effect over each image, almost certainly anti-SCQT. In fact, you can see identical glitch lines running through most of them, confirming that this isn't an organic distortion, considering these images never appeared online before 2024. I think we can safely say that whoever posted them was playing into the rumors. Simply debunking these images doesn't prove that the 2006 volleyball incident never happened, but ultimately there's no evidence it did. So what seems more likely to you, that dozens of students were mowed down by CIA operatives for seemingly no reason at all, and that despite word initially getting out, the government was able to suppress news of the incident and prevent the parents and friends of the victims from ever talking about it? Or that the whole thing was an invention conceived by a force-chanon who added it to their tier list as an experiment, a way for them to test how easily baseless rumors can proliferate online? If you said the former, then it may be time to switch off the computer and touch some grass. This whole mystery is most definitely a hoax, and certainly not the first of its kind to originate on 4chan's pullboard, a place where famously trolls gather to troll other trolls. And in this instance, the joke, if you can call it that, got about as much attention as Op could have hoped for after rumors of the volleyball incident caught traction. Someone later fact these images to add to the mystery with some semblance of legitimacy. The incident was then added to iceberg charts and covered by big YouTubers and TikTokers, and the whole thing's no-balled at its core. This is just a modern-day creepypasta one that spread like wildfire online, mainly because as recent times have taught us, people desperately want to believe in hidden truths. Indeed, if there's one lesson we can and should take away from the 2006 volleyball hoax, it's that in this digital age, the scariest thing isn't necessarily what's been erased from history, but how we see it'll soon be to create history that never even happened. In 1935, and located wholly within the Arctic Circle Heights, the world's northernmost metropolis Norilsk, being home to some of the world's largest mining and smelting companies and the site of one of history's worst oil spells. It shouldn't surprise you that it's considered one of the most polluted cities in all of Russia, and by extension one of the most polluted in all of the world. There are even reports of a so-called dead zone outside of the city, heavily impacted by acid rain brought on by all of the sulfur dioxide that the Enor Nickel Company pumps into the atmosphere. And yet, despite being industrially significant, politically newsworthy, and having a sizable population, I doubt many of you have ever heard of NSK. And that may have something to do with the fact that it's a closed city, though few would ever choose to holiday there, seeing how temperatures in the winter can fall below minus 30 degrees centigrade. You wouldn't even be able to if you tried. Outsiders need a special pass to enter the city, and very few foreign journalists have ever been allowed in. In fact, the city's been closed off since 1956, when people first began questioning the high death toll among the Gulag laborers sent there in its first 2 decades alone. At least 16,800 inmates perished while working in Norilsk mines, mostly from hypothermia, starvation, exhaustion, and itchy fingers on Kalashnikov triggers. Although forced labor has since been abolished, access to the city still remains heavily restricted to this day. And yet, unlike with many other closed cities, if you go to Noril on Google Maps, you'll find that you have the option to enter Street View, and if you begin exploring her smog and frost-covered streets, you'll be met with a strange sight: figures in hazmat suits walking around among the residents, peering around corners and standing ominously at the end of roads. After a while, you start to get the sense that Noril isn't an ordinary city at all, and that perhaps there's a good reason the Russian government won't let visitors enter. Many forum users began pondering who these bizarro Teletubbies might be. Theories ranged from these being the winter clothes of a local company to there being some sort of secret weapons facility in the city. The more grounded said that these were obviously just killer Sour Patch Kids. Others applied Ohm's razor and said that the most likely explanation was that they were pranksters following the Google car around the city's main street, as many people have done in other parts of the world. There's just one problem with that. Though Nil has no Google HQ, no road leading to it, and the Google Mobile has never even ventured to the city. Indeed, the more perceptive among you may have already noticed that these aren't official Street View images, but are rather a series of photos uploaded by a woman named Anna Toeva. So what's going on here? Well, a quick Google search of Anna's name tells Seuss everything we need to know. She's a Russian artist, and these faceless sprites are but one of her many projects. She even has a website with a page dedicated to this particular antic, which she titled Color Spirits. There, she explains how this whole thing was an art project, one with the express purpose of drawing attention to Noril's pollution problem. The Nornickel factory creates a lot of pollution in the city and the surrounding tundra. Occasionally, one can see yellow smoke from the factory or even red rain. If you look at the surrounding tundra from the Sputnik maps, you can see red, green, and yellow laces in several areas. Noril is a half-closed city, so it's hard to get in. Moreover, there are no Google Street Views, so you can't walk in streets even virtually. Anna goes on to explain how she created her own street view of Neural. She walked around the city with a 360-degree camera on her head alongside 4 residents dressed in chemical protection suits. Their colors are not only linked to the Google logo, but also to the color of the pollution belched out by their local factories, and so the mystery of Thessady's colorful residents is solved. They aren't government agents or chemical workers, but rather an artistic statement against environmental destruction. Anna Chela turned a city shrouded in secrecy and pollution into a canvas using the very tools meant to map the world to expose a place that resists being seen and yet even knowing the truth. NL remains a fascinating enigma, a city built by prisoners poisoned by industry and hidden from outsiders. It dances our reminder of the power and the consequences of human ambition. While Google may not have captured its straits and color sprites that at least for those who stumble upon them, Neural is impossible to